Hey y'all, my name's Carl. Welcome back to the channel. Today I want to do something a little different. So today is February 1st, which means we're getting into the swing of 2019, and I wanted to take a look back on some albums that are turning 10 this year that I think had either a profound influence on me personally or on the genre that they fall under, and I just think it would be cool to look back on these albums as they're turning 10. Now, these aren't all the albums from 2009 that I think are good or important, just 10 that I chose that I think are worth discussing when having this albums that came out 10 years ago discussion. Before I begin, I just want to give a shout out to 5 albums that didn't make the cut that I just think are great albums as well and are also turning 10 this year, and that is Architect's Hollow Crown, Every Time I Die's New Junk Aesthetic, Alexisonfire's Old Crow's Young Cardinals, We Came as Romans to Plant a Seed, and Straight from the Path's Make Your Own History. These are all great albums that are also, again, turning 10 this year, so definitely check them out in conjunction with these other albums that are also turning 10. This first album that I want to talk about is my personal favorite album of all time. It has been with me since high school, which was a little after it came out, but it really shaped the way that I think about music and certain topics, and definitely how I listen to certain bands and what I look for in lyrics. And that is The Devil Wears Prada's 2009 LP with Roots Above and Branches Below. This album was released May 5th, 2009 through Ferret Records, and it was produced by Joey Sturgis. It charted at number 11 on the Billboard 200 and sold 31,000 copies in its first week. Now that's really impressive for a metalcore band, but it just goes to show how popular The Devil Wears Prada was in their day. They're still writing great music, but with such a drastic departure from their old sound and some label instability over the past couple years, it's kind of given way for them falling off a little bit in terms of their popularity. Nevertheless, With Roots Above was an album that was heralded for its strong fusion of crushing breakdowns, sugary sweet choruses, and prominent synths. This record helped to partially pave the way for some bands that were either up and coming at the time or came along a little later, such as Asking Alexandria, I See Stars, Abandon All Ships, and We Came as Romans. One very distinct element about this record for me that stands out after each listen is the use of strong lyricism to discuss some urgent and poignant topics going on in society. For instance, on the song Wapocalypse, vocalist Mike Haranica says, "Mass media, mass pessimism, mass denial, my television tells me to panic, but I don't think I'll listen." Or on the song I Hate Buffering, when he says, "Our entertainment, a mockery. With every laugh and every joke, the actor's lungs become more dense with damnation," only to follow up with, "Don't mistake my intentions for superiority, let's make that clear." These pointed criticisms towards society's proclivity for fear-mongering and consumption were really the first of their kind in metalcore, especially for a band that wasn't as openly political at the time. The band also weaves in lyrics about their Christian faith, like on the song Assistant to the Regional Manager, whose chorus proclaims, "All glory to the one in existence, bring upon your name, your grace, your everything." Or on the song Big Wiggly Style, whose chorus proclaims, "Look to the sky, encourage the elements of God, rather than the jars that contain them." This is perhaps one of the most unabashed declarations of faith that we've ever heard on a metalcore record, and all of these elements combined, from the political to the religious to just the sonic elements, make this album a no-brainer to include on this list. Next, I want to keep in line with that Christian metalcore theme and talk about August Burns Red's record Constellations. This album was released July 14th, 2009 through Solid State Records, and it was the third studio LP from this band hailing from Lancaster, Pennsylvania. It charted at number 24 on the Billboard 200, selling just over 20,000 copies its first week. ABR has always been a band that relies more heavily on the metal rather than the core, and this record is no exception. Rife with dominating, thrash-inspired guitar riffs, crushing drums, and in-your-face vocal performances, this is the band's next notch in a discography that was a journey into the true depths of the metal roots of metalcore. With tracks like the opener 30 and 7, whose lyrics proclaim, "Will you always need someone to hold your hand and walk you through the night's shadows?" It's so much easier to fight this war when you're the last in line. These lyrics are another element that separates them from what's trending in metalcore at the time. They are urgent, direct, and critical. On the track Whitewashed, vocalist Jake Lurs proclaims, "You ask me to be blameless, but who are you to decide what's right? Don't say another word, you've crossed the line." Weaved into the instrumentation are guitar solos that soar above the crushing breakdowns, that pay homage to guitarists like Metallica's Kirk Hammett, Slash from Guns N' Roses, and Pantera's Dimebag Darrell. Outside of the technical guitar playing, drummer Matt Greiner and bassist Dustin Davidson combined to form one of the most formidable rhythm sections in all of metalcore. This record is a triumph of the old school mentality towards metal, but with a new school approach to the lyrics and melodic sections. This next record won't take me very long to discuss, but because I listened to it a lot when I was younger and it's widely considered to be one of the most popular metalcore albums of all time, I think I kinda have to. That would be Asking Alexandria's debut record, Stand Up and Scream. This record was released September 15th, 2009 through Sumerian Records, and it was produced by Joey Sturgis, who also produced The Devil Wears Pradas with Roots Above and Branches Below. This record peaked at number 170 on the Billboard 200, but helped to garner the band a fan base that seemed to develop overnight. What makes this record so special? Well, that depends who you ask. To me, this record is special because it features a lot of stereotypical chugging breakdowns and weird soaring synth parts, and also a lot of incredibly misogynist lyrics. In fact, the band became so synonymous with this growing trend in metalcore to call out the whores and sluts, ex-girlfriends and girls who wouldn't sleep with you alike, that they kind of took the moniker as a misogynistic metalcore band proudly. So while I have a pretty strong distaste for this album now, it was pretty integral in my life when I was younger, and I feel like a lot of people would say the same. Moving on from there is another debut record that was produced by Joey Sturgis. That record is Miss May I's Apologies Are For the Weak, which was released June 23rd, 2009 through Rise Records. This record sold 25,000 copies in its first year and peaked at number 29 on the Billboard Heatseekers chart. In a somewhat similar vein to August Burns Red, this record features a lot of thrash-inspired guitars that just shred through these tracks. From the record's opening track, A Dance with Aracura, those thrashing guitars mixed with pounding drums and vocalist Levi Benton's high-pitched screams show up in full force. The band recorded this record while they were still in high school, which is all the more impressive given how put together and cohesive this record is. The band's ability to incorporate those powerful riffs with well-crafted choruses and strong melodic sections really gives the record its character. I'd be remiss if I didn't mention the sheer breadth of great breakdowns on this album, like the song A Dance with Aracura, the title track, and the song Porcelain Wings. This record is a testament to the variety of great metalcore that existed in 2009. Next up is another metalcore record, but from a more seasoned band. That is Converge's Axeito, which was released on October 20th, 2009 through Epitaph Records. This was the band's 7th studio album, and like most of their material, it was produced by their guitarist Kurt Ballou. It peaked at number 74 on the Billboard 200, selling over 7,000 copies its first week. Converge has always been a band with a cult following. Their 2001 LP Jane Doe is widely considered to be one of the most underrated and also one of the most important metalcore records of all time. Axeito is a similarly overlooked record, with the record's first track, Dark Horse, coming in with these thumping drums, galloping bass, and shredding guitars that really help the track live up to its name. Fusing a distinctive hardcore sound with some industrial and doom metal elements, the band is able to pull off tracks like Cruel Bloom and the 7+ minute closer Wretched World. Still, there are plenty of aggressive, in-your-face tracks on this LP like Wishing Well and Slave Driver. Vocalist Jacob Bannon takes a little bit more of an accessible approach on this record. Instead of opting for his indecipherable signature shriek, he goes for a little bit more of a shout and a yell. All in all, with its dynamic approach to metalcore, this record just proves that Converge hadn't lost steam by their 7th LP. Now, I have a slightly heavier record that I think just deserves to be mentioned because to this day it's my favorite album from this band. And that is Suicide Silence's No Time to Bleed. This record was released June 30th, 2009 through Century Media Records. It was the band's most commercially successful LP, selling over 14,000 copies in its first week and charting at number 32 on the Billboard Top 200. This record is one of the most successful deathcore albums of all time, and for good reason. From the record's opening track, Wake Up, the band makes haste to deliver punishing, brutal sections of just slamming guitars, crushing drums, and the late Mitch Lucker's high-pitched signature shrieking vocals. Towards the end of that song, there are these blast beat drums accompanied by these slamming, chugging guitars. The atmosphere is dark and desolate and empty. And this record altogether is a really dark and desolate record. And the lyrics are no exception to that rule either. On the record's iconic closing track, Disengage, Lucker proclaims, "One day there will be no more pain. Like an opiate wonderland, no more worry, it will all just end." Even on the instrumental track, And Then She Bled, which features a 911 call placed by a woman whose pet chimpanzee had a breakdown and attacked her friend, mutilating her with this very disturbing call in the background, the band is able to create an even more unsettling, disturbing atmosphere with these sounds from guitars and drums and bass that are just eerily shrieking in the back of the mix. You can't stay focused on one thing or another, but you're totally consumed by this darkness. It sounds almost reminiscent of an early Slipknot track. This record is trailblazing for the deathcore genre and helped pave the way for the genre to explode in the early 2010s. Next is a record that I have to mention because while I genuinely love this record, there seem to be some mixed reactions about it, and I think that's kind of a bummer. That would be I Wrestled a Bear Once's debut studio album, It's All Happening. This record was released June 2nd, 2009 through Century Media Records and features some of the most wild fusions you'll ever hear. There's deathcore, there's techno, there's metalcore. It's just a wild assortment of genres and influences all thrown together on one LP. The record's title is totally fitting for what's going on. It's all happening. The thing that first drew me to this band when I was younger was the fact that they had a female vocalist, and I thought that was pretty cool because I hadn't found very many heavy bands, at least not with a female singer who did the screaming. Plus they had this t-shirt that said "Metal Just Got Gay" with a rainbow foil on the shirt, and I owned it and I loved that shirt. So how would I describe this record? Well, it's kind of a clusterfuck, but in the best possible way. Tracks like You Ain't No Family and Taste Like Kevin Bacon show that the band isn't taking themselves too seriously, but that they're seriously talented, and these songs are actually enjoyable to listen to. Some of the more melodic moments on this record show that the band is willing to drop the silliness for a second and incorporate some of those more accessible flavors in the metalcore and post-hardcore genres. This record stands out to me 10 years later because it is so unashamed of being itself, and I love it to this day. Now we're going to get into some releases that are a little more on the post-hardcore side of things, and we're going to start off with one that's probably one of the most iconic records, not just of 2009, but of all time. A Day to Remember Homesick was released February 3rd, 2009, which is almost exactly 10 years to the day of me recording this, through Victory Records. What is there to say about this record that hasn't already been said? Its groundbreaking fusion of metalcore, post-hardcore, and pop-punk into one cohesive unit that goes beyond the scope of the label easycore was really kind of revolutionary for the time. Their blend of these genres helped pave the way for some of their contemporaries and bands that would follow in their footsteps a little further down the line. Homesick is a testament to the experimentation that was going on in the sister genres metalcore, post-hardcore, and pop-punk at this time. It's also a testament to the dedication of the fans that were giving these albums a platform and helping to grow the metalcore and post-hardcore and pop-punk communities. Iconic tracks like The Downfall of Us All, I'm Made of Wax Larry, What Are You Made Of, Mr. Highway's Thinking About the End, and If It Means a Lot to You made this record a veritable tour de force in the late 2000s alternative music scene. This record has stood the test of time for its strong use of choruses and melodic sections and badass breakdowns, which actually helped pave the way for A Day to Remember to be thought of as one of the best bands in terms of writing breakdowns in our music scene. There's something for everyone on this record. It's considered to be one of the most accessible gateway albums in the alternative music scene, and it's a great way to turn someone on to metalcore or post-hardcore who wasn't previously a listener. Next is a record that has a lot of personal significance for me, but is another boundary-pushing record. Enter Shikari's second full-length record, Common Dreads, was released June 15th, 2009 through Ambush Reality. This was the band's first venture into overtly political lyricism, whilst retaining their genre crossing of post-hardcore and heavy electronics, and even some indie rock and metalcore. The opening title track is a profound rejection of capitalism in modern society, declaring we must no longer commute between brand-laden homes and quickly accepted aimless roams from our factories of slavery to wars of elusive bravery. We must unite and we must let the floodgates open. Before vocalist Rao Reynolds shouts, "Here tonight I quack 1,000 heads, here to unite through common dreads," before transitioning into the next song, Step Up, which begins with these powerful, abrasive synth leads that just totally disorient you on first listen. The band makes quite a few profound statements on this record, including condemning the way that society treats the poor and the environment, as well as our embrace of industrialism and military intervention. The band also includes some tongue-in-cheek, less serious songs like the nostalgic track Hectic, or the totally off-the-wall song The Jester, or the absolutely insane, crazy, heavy track Zonked. The band's use of harsh electronics and soaring choruses and dance-worthy breaks was another great step for a band already known for pushing the boundaries of post-hardcore. Last but not least is a record by an extremely popular band, and while this record is generally considered to be one of their most popular, it's also one of their most polarizing for a variety of reasons. And that is Dance Gavin Dance's Happiness. This record was released on June 9th, 2009 through Rise Records, and it was the first album of the band's to not feature vocalist John Mess, whose shoes were filled by guitarist Will Swan, and also the second record to feature singer Kurt Travis. The band was in the midst of extreme membership instability, and through all of that, they were able to get into the studio and record their third LP in as many years. Happiness is not exactly the way that I would describe this album lyrically, maybe sonically, but overall this is a pretty downtrodden record thematically. The band's trademark post-hardcore sound, which fuses elements of funk rock and jazz and hip-hop and R&B, are still very prominent on this record, but it's Kurt Travis's heartbreaking lyricism that really kind of gives its title an irony. The lyrics deal with heartbreak and lust and ultimately trying to find happiness in a very depressing world. Will Swan's raspy shouts and rapping appear on this record, and his lyrics seem to mimic at least somewhat the lyrics of John Mess, who he was taking over for on this record. Those lyrics are very, silly and not exactly serious, but still charming in their own right. The band persevered through so many challenges that it almost feels like this record is a time capsule for a band that almost didn't make it through an incredibly rough patch in their career. Fans are still split on what their favorite DGD release or vocalist is, but this one continues to stand the test of time and is generally considered a fan favorite. So those are 10 records that are turning 10 this year. Which one was your favorite of the ones that I talked about? And what's your favorite record that's turning 10 this year that I didn't mention? Let me know in the comments down below. Remember to like and subscribe and share this with your friends if you liked it. I'll definitely be getting more videos out soon. Thanks for watching. See you later. Peace.